Hello there. What's going on, everyone? We are live. We are hanging out with some esteemed colleagues today. We've got Matt, who you guys probably may have remembered from Mando Chat. We've got Derek and Jeremy. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing pretty good. Hang on just a second. I'll be right back.
And then there we go. What a great start.
He's already out.
He's doing terrible, and he doesn't want anything to do with you guys. He is out of here. And wow, I want to throw a huge shout out to Bleed Green Productions for starting out like almost every single live stream I do. Bleed Green starts out with a super chat for $1. Thank you, Bleed Green, for supporting the channel. I appreciate you. All right, so anyway, now that we know how Matt's doing,
yeah, Matt's out.
Derek and Jeremy, how you guys doing?
Doing excellent. My bathroom remodel starts tomorrow, so excited for that.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Well, are you doing it yourself, or are you having somebody else do it?
Oh, hell no. I'm hiring someone who actually knows what they're doing.
Probably a good idea. I tried to assist in doing one myself one time, and we're already having to redo it. So that will happen. But for you guys all watching, we're going to be talking Star Wars Armada here. We've got some of the brightest minds in Star Wars Armada. You guys are all, the rumor is all three of you guys are on the new AMG development team as senior lead developers for Star Wars Armada. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. If that's the news, I would like to confirm that it's news to me too.
Oh, okay.
Well, you didn't know? You didn't get the letter? Oh,
no.
I want to check your email real quick.
Snowing here, the mail didn't come today.
Oh, man. Too bad. Too bad.
But no, I think I've met each of you guys at various conventions and through Armada Discord and through like it's just I know Derek, you're you're the judge now. You're like you're the new Ian. Well, you're not even new anymore. Like that was an old joke, But
Ian is still around. He and I still talk a lot. We were going to be running LVO together. So Ian's not out of the scene. He's just a busy person like a lot of people.
I should have asked Ian to come on too. That would have been cool.
He would not have been able to do it.
Well, maybe if I had asked him, he might have. God,
true.
I usually
you're assuming how low in the priority I am.
No, I just. Even for like LVO stuff, I'd be like, Ian, we gotta talk. He's like, all right, next week and next week. Ian, we gotta talk. All right, next week, and then that's how.
See, I'm gonna ask him. He's gonna come on right away, and you're gonna be like, he was.
Let me get my boot.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But also the thing is that too that would have aligned this whole window I have right up here is that we would have had 4x4. It would have been less the awkward upside down pyramid.
I'm on the bottom, but I'm bigger. I'm the bigger bottom, so I need the double top.
Are you there's a joke. Wow. There's a joke there about being a bottom.
There's a lot of jokes there.
YouTube After Dark all of a sudden. What happened?
There's a Queen song all about that too. All right. So, so moving right along.
Hold us together, Crabbok. Come on, move us along.
So I brought these excellent gentlemen on board today to kind of help articulate and take some questions from the audience, and we're going to talk about the new rules because Armada's got a 1.5 is kind of what we're calling it, or I think we need to get past that at some point because then what's the next rules reference going to be 1.6, and we're going to run out of decimals eventually. So, it's kind of like the
1.5.1. That's what it'll be.
1.5 point. That's fair.
Armada is technically, if you look at the rule manual, it does state it as 1.5.
No kidding.
And no, I'm not kidding at all.
Oh,
when
okay.
Gurns came onto your interview and said calling it 1.5 was appropriate, he wasn't joking when he said that. It is appropriate
fantastic.
to call it 1.5.
Yeah,
it says it on the document.
I thought that was just a soft term because of all the backlash with X-Wing 2.0, but no, yeah, 1.5 is great, and you can and so Matt, you're exactly right. We'll just continue to decimalize and sublease out the real estate in the decimals there, but there's a lot of important changes. But unlike something with X-Wing 2.0, I think the feel of the game and most of the game is actually the same. And so what we're going to be talking about here tonight, everybody that's watching, and feel free to leave your questions in the chat, is the different changes that are out there. There's, I think, 3 really big changes that are the primary ones we're going to be talking about. Plus, there's a lot of cards that got changed and there's going to be a lot of strategies and points changes that are on a much smaller scale. But the first thing that I'd like to talk about is that we'll go into is the squadron based changes, because there's a few things with squadrons that are important. But I guess before we get into that, how are you guys feeling about the Clone Wars release so far yet? Has anybody been able to actually find stuff in stores, or have anybody still waiting on pre-orders?
Showed up. They showed up.
Mine showed up.
I pre-ordered.
Yeah.
I now have 2 core sets and 2 sets of Squadron packs, and I have no
You got what,
idea
three dial packs? Is that what you picked up?
How many dial packs did you get? I would not have gotten one if FFG didn't send me a review copy, because that was the only way I was going to open up a dial pack. But yeah, there's literally nothing in there you need.
No. I thought there was. I watched the video you had, maybe hoping there was something else in there, but
like a little golden, like a fancy, like an acrylic clear command dial, like just one of them, and you're like,
sure, whatever. Yeah, I would have bought it. That's fine. Sure, I would have got it, but no, nothing.
Yeah. No,
but yeah, I got two core packs and 2 separatist, just separatist faction packs and squad packs as well. So
no Republic, huh?
No, that's I got a buddy that has Republic and we'll play against each other. But no, I just picked one faction. I got rid of all my Rebel stuff too, so I don't need that.
Okay,
just Empire.
Well, now you've got the upgrade card pack too, so you got all the cards. You won't have to buy anything Rebel ever again.
It might need another one though. I mean, only 1 flight controller's in there. I'm a little sad.
Well, it's a good thing all your old cards are still valid, because I know you
That's
have
true.
a Super, I know you have a Vic.
FFG still has a warehouse full of Victory class Star Destroyers.
I'm sure they do.
To buy them.
An entire warehouse.
To sell at all of like $8 a ship on Amazon or something.
Well, if you need another one too, you can always get. They gave you one in the Super Star Destroyer also. So if you want to spend $200 for an extra one.
Well, now the gunnery teams doesn't work. You might as well use flight controllers with your Sloan build you're working on, right, Matt?
It may or may not include flight controllers. I said it was a dumb idea.
Oh wow!
I wasn't kidding.
That's all right. They all start off as dumb ideas until they win, so it's fine.
So we've got a couple of questions, and I think these are probably better to be addressed a little bit later on when we get to them. But I don't want to ignore them right away, so I'm going to allow 2 questions in before we start rolling with the flow, because these are kind of questions that I think would be addressed a little bit later on. But True Zeriel, I'm guessing that's the name, asks, do you believe with reduced emphasis on activation meta due to the pass tokens, and again, that's what we'll talk about, and a mild rework of the blockade run objective, will they remove the 2 flotilla limit on tournament lists? That's really a broad kind of opinion question. You guys don't think? You guys say no?
That's interesting. I don't think they will.
I don't know if they will. But I would love to see that personally. Now I know that some of you guys are like all for the 2 flotilla limit, and I'm gonna do a little bit of history lesson before we get into this for anybody who's not watching. There used to be no limit on flotillas, and also flotillas could be your flagship, and relay worked across the whole board, and so people would put their commander on a flotilla, fly them out into a far corner, and just activate squadrons risk-free all day long. And about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, there was a big change that hit flotillas 3 different ways that you could not be a flagship. They counted. They wouldn't count as preventing you from being tabled, so they were almost as good as squadrons. Basically, if you lost your non-flotilla ships, you were done. And on top of that, also made them a limit of 2. And I felt like that limit of 2 was overkill, because I thought everything else was kind of there, but a lot of it really depends on what their future plans are with flotillas. What do you guys think?
I mean, I'm all for version 1.25 when it came out, so that's fine. That's what it was, right? The flotillas?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, exactly. No, I was for it just because I know we saw a few lists. Toker, was it Toker that ran the 8 flotilla list and with the combats? Yeah, and that was a little ridiculous. So I also didn't like that you can put your commander on it, although, obviously the Mandalorian, there's a commander on a Gazanti, but oh well.
I think he was just an officer. I think he was
just an officer. Oh, okay.
That's fine. He was like a 10-point officer, though. Who was it?
Right.
Yeah.
He was like a Chiranu, so I got you.
Yeah, and Vader still had to kind of choke him out. It's just a different version.
Right.
Gideon has a choke out version too, apparently.
Yeah, I think spamming something that cheap just kind of led to a little bit of game breaking. So I like the 2. I'm a fan of it.
Yeah.
I remember very clearly. I'll be honest, it's always going to be difficult for me to pull 2 flotillas away from Rebel ace holes. The Hateful 8, the Magnificent 7, whatever you want to call them. That was not fun to play against. And neither was its Imperial counterpart, to be clear. The ISD
Avenger.
+4, ISD +5.
Mm-hmm.
and the relay changed hit the Imperial version harder than it did the Rebel one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be honest, I hated ace holes. It's really hard to make it work with the 2 flotilla limit. And it and Fish Farm, which was Akbar, bunch of flotillas running like sensor net or fire lanes and just racking up tokens without fighting you. I'm not interested in discovering if Radis and the Onager deal with them. They can stay in the dustbin of history. Good riddance.
And that was the point that I was going to bring up is, in terms of gameplay, it's like with the rules and changes and everything else we have going on, like, could you potentially remove that limit and have the game be fine? Yes, except, as Matt pointed out, when you take in objectives. Things like hyperspace migration, volatile deposits, you take into fact...
More whale watching than volatile.
Yeah. You would encourage players to just have a bunch of activations, but also be able to just farm a lot of tokens. And as the opposite player, even if you have a plan for it, it still would be extremely difficult to try to prevent that type of gameplay and then come out as a victor in that. You just it wouldn't really be possible.
Yeah, high MP on that one, so I think that's why they just got rid of it.
Big thanks to Daniel J. Green, real quick, for the super chat, who asks, "How has your day been?" So thanks to Daniel. I've had a good day. How about you guys? How was your day been? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're good.
What were you saying, Matt?
All day because of snow. It was pretty good.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, the snow! Yeah. I had a warm day here in Orlando. It's supposed to get cold tomorrow. I'm hoping it does because I'm so tired of it being hot. But what can you do? I have a suggestion for you guys, because and I think you made a good point with the flotilla change, and because the objective thing is a different point of view. I usually play more of a battle. I usually don't play objectives as much, at least, because I'm in there to roll dice and to have ships shoot ships, and that's usually like the fun way that I like to play. And I don't like to win on technicalities as much. But I mean, that's a great observation. That's why we have different points of view here, because otherwise I get tunnel vision. But what if, as somebody who had bought 3 Guzantis at the time, and then now I can't ever use the 3 again, at least unless it's some kind of custom game or something. And I'm like, well, what if they, eventually, what if they did other flotillas? What if they wanted to come up with more flotillas, think outside the box or whatever? They'd always be hampered by that. And I feel like you could always fix that by maybe having a title that says this doesn't count as, towards your limit of 2 flotillas. And now you have it mitigated. Like you can have 1 extra if you wanted to try and, run 3 because there's a new flotilla that works well with other flotillas or something like that. I feel like there's a lot of ways that they could still work around it to give you some more without letting it run away,
Sure. And to kind of address part of that is that the flotilla limit is for tournament structured games only. You can still bring 3 flotillas in a casual game, but by and large,
no, I mean, you're absolutely correct. I'm just being funny because
I see what you're saying. Like, I thought you're like, but am I not right in this? Like, maybe
no,
I'm
not right in this.
By default,
shut him down.
Point sector fleet list has 3
Right.
flotillas in it.
Yeah.
So in a casual game, you can still bring however many flotillas you want. FFG knew not to limit that portion because you bought the stuff, you should be able to play with it. But in the tournament setting, again, that's why they have that limit, just for people who maybe not realize that. Because a lot of people just play by tournament rules. And if you do ask some of the used to be able to ask them, can't anymore. When you ask them about how maybe overemphasized that was in the community, they would say we don't like how that is more emphasized than just casual gameplay. People seem to hyper-focus on that limit rather than just being like, you can still play with your toys. But yeah, some players definitely, most players when they play, they want to play per tournament rules and not incorporate the fact that you can play the game however you want.
Right.
The pros and cons of that.
One more question before we go. Go ahead.
So the idea of a title that would let you bypass this does not count as a flotilla. I'm not opposed out of hand. I would need to see what the ship it was coming with looked like.
Sure. I mean, because one thing that hasn't been completely stated is, flotilla is defined as a ship base that has 2 ships in the rulebook as of right now, and of course they can change that because it's now a living guide. But there's nothing in there that says flotillas must be small-based ships. They could always come up with a medium-based flotilla if they wanted to think outside the box.
There's no rule that they have scatter defense tokens.
Exactly.
There's no rule that they have any of what they have.
Right. So you could have a 100-point flotilla at some point, theoretically.
If you told me that AMG wants to roll out, you can run flotillas of every ship the next size up. So you could have a flotilla of CR-90s that's a medium base.
Right.
Or, God forbid, a flotilla of ISDs on a huge base. Since I didn't put that limiter in there.
Well, you could even have mixed, like you could have a flight group, like you could maybe a Victory, a Gladiator, and a Raider on like a large base, you know, or something like that. You know, like that'd be really cool.
Opposed to that.
The old Halo game is
everybody that it'd be balanced, but I'm not opposed in principle.
I don't know if anyone's played that Halo game where you had like a base and you had multiple ships on it, and when you were losing ships, you would remove them off the base. So that was something that they did, but you know that would require a whole lot of change to something that's pretty established. So
that does sound like we're kind of crossing into new game territory there,
right.
But either way, there's a lot of possibility for stuff like that. I don't think the 2 flotilla rule is broken right now, but I'm a little sore, admittedly, and this is my own personal bias of having a third Gazanti that I'm not going to use because I like to, you know, run tournament style games when I build my lists. But oh well, you know what? First world problems.
Well, and that's why they have, you know, Rebellion of the Rim, Carillion. They have the Sector Fleet. They have all that. I mean, they're you know, if you go to a tournament, you've accepted the 400-point rule with the 2 flotillas. I think it says 300 in the Learn to Play, by the way. So I think there is a typo in there. I was reading through it the other day.
In the initial Learn to Play, the first game was
300.
It was 3 points until I think Wave 2 came out. Then it became 400 points. But
and then I was reading it the other day. I saw that.
The last question I want to take before we move into the talking points is thoughts on ECM now. Is it still at the top of your defensive retrofit pick? I'm going to say no, but it depends on the ship, obviously. But what do you guys think?
I mean, I think they're right. It's based on the ship. I think some of them still need it. But I think it gives you extra stuff. I mean, I know, you know, doing the chaff tokens, that's a pretty good one. You know, advanced projectors. I mean, there's other stuff. I know I was running the Munificent and I had the blast doors, and I probably would have put ECM on it just because it has the 1 token on each one. But now having to token mitigate and do all this stuff, I just couldn't make it work. And so, you know, I like it. I like it, the diversity of it, at least, that it doesn't make it the auto include.
I want to throw out another one that's a new favorite of mine that I think is on a lot of ships that always took ECM, like an MC-80 Home 1 style. Reactive gunnery is just gorgeous. I mean,
love it.
Yeah, I mean, all the old ships that did that, especially an MC-80, that didn't have access to salvo at all, now do. That's beautiful. And now you take,
especially with red dice in the back. I mean, that's oh yeah.
And the MC-80 has 3, so you're like, or an assault frigate Mark II, which, you know, used to have to put its weapons team to try and get salvo. Now doesn't have to do that. And then since it's got the evade that's buffed, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about as well. Like, I feel like there's a lot of new options. I don't think ECM is an auto include anymore.
I think ECM comes down to 2 questions. What are you expecting to fly against? What are you flying? If you're flying, like, for example, if you're an Akbar MC-75, to pick a ship that doesn't want reactive gunnery. Even before the change, but I think especially now, you can make an argument for EWS because you're trying to stay at range, you're trying to hold them in only 1 arc.
Right.
You can make that work, and now you don't have to worry about finding repair tokens. My Nova list is not dumping ECM. It's as simple as that. This is a Star Destroyer whose whole job is to get in the face of another big ship, and then, if it has to, survive there.
Oh, is that what it was supposed to do? Oh, was that?
You didn't manage to kill it.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
So
Twice.
Here's one of the new weaknesses for not just ECM, but a lot of new cards since the Clone Wars and stuff have come out, and it's the MS-1 Ion Cannon. For only 2 points, you get that blue crit, and you can exhaust a Defender's upgrade card. Especially if you're talking about an upgrade card that requires a token to ready. Now, all of a sudden, I think this card's got new life. But
so that card is good. I actually tried the Munificent with the which one was it? The Ion Cannon batteries. And against Republic, oh my God, it shut them down because they're swapping tokens left and right. They're doing clone gunners over here. They're navigation officer, whatever it is. You get that blue crit, and it's like it just take that away from them. And if you couple it with Dooku, which is what I end up doing, it wasn't fun for him. Let's just say that.
Sure. So, okay. All right.
Time.
All right, so I want to kind of take the discussion along a little bit and move into the we've been talking about ship upgrades a little bit, and keep putting your questions out there. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can. But there's a couple of big changes that came out for Squadrons. The first of which was the first one we heard about on the unnamed Armada podcast. Had the interview with Michael Gurnis, and they talked a little bit about the Squadron 4 ace limit. And this one was an interesting one to me because I've said before I didn't even really see the need for this. I know that I've talked with some of you guys one-on-one, and there were specific lists it was targeted against. But I think an interesting thing about this 4 ace limit is that it's 4 ace or unique pilots, specifically ones that have defensive defense tokens. I was redoing my what to buy first lists, and I do these, and I was working on these last night, and I came across you know what, I think this puts a little extra value on Corellian Conflict, because now you're getting more aces that don't have defense tokens that can kind of give you a little bit of an edge considering this new rules change. What do you guys think about this list? Do you think it's a good change, and what kind of lists do you think it was targeted against?
I mean,
two commanders in particular. It's not hard to guess.
I would say it's not exactly subtle about its targets.
Right.
It was aimed at 2-ship. It was aimed at Sloan all aces, and it was aimed at Riken all aces.
Okay.
Yeah. My Sloan list has got to go back and retool a little bit, but I mean, it still has Saber, so you can still put that in there, and it doesn't count, which is nice. But I mean, it got a little ridiculous. I played a guy that had a swarm of generics, and I had just the 8 aces, and I cleaned up, and I think I lost Mauler. That's all I lost. And I mean, that's typical. That's not something that was weird. Like, after I was done with it, he kind of looked down. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought. So I think it's a good change. Getting rid of that. I mean, you still, like you said, it's the token. So things like Saber still work for
Squadron.
It. Gold Squadron's a good one. Yep, that one still works for it. So there are some ways around it, but 4 token aces it's a bit strong, especially when you throw Sloan in there.
Sure.
It gets a little ridiculous.
And another thing too that some people won't quite think about is how much game time all those aces doing tokens, doing all this, that, the other thing, that was also sucking up a lot of game time in tournament play. By now just having generics that you just blow up in one shot, it's done, you move on, you're not having to deal with it anymore. So it's also you're going to see reduced play time on that as well.
I was going to say, you have this whole shenanigans of, I want to engage Valen Rudor, but not Sienna, because then I can't shoot Valen.
I want this bubble here, that bubble over there.
Sure that I can pick off Howl Runner with my next X-Wing, and then, but big, it's got that X-Wing's got to be in range of Biggs, Jan, and
So this is an interesting point, because I honestly thought that it would be the opposite effect when this first came out. I thought to myself, well, if I can only have 4 aces, that means if I want to run bombers or whatever, I'm going to have to put more points into generics, which is going to add up to more squadrons on the table, which means more time moving squadrons and more squadrons to measure, and thus I thought, sometimes if I want to run 6 aces versus 16 TIE fighters or something like that, it's going to obviously take up a lot more time moving 16 squadrons than just moving 6 or something like that. So that was my thought. But I guess you bring up a good point of all the interactions that the uniques bring that you don't really have to worry about. And is Howl Runner range 1 of this guy? But is he also range 1 of Darth Vader and now has escort? And yeah.
Now, I will say one strange thing that I have with the new squadrons is and Derek, maybe you'll attest to this, the touching of the squadron, like 404, right? The bomber, he has to touch the defender. Is that the first time we've seen an actual model that because I mean, if you're a millimeter away, you can make the argument that it's not touching and it doesn't affect it. That's just weird.
I don't know the design decision that went into that, but at the end of the day, when you're placing that squadron, you're just going to have to be crystal clear.
What your intentions are?
I'm placing this touching.
Yeah.
So if it gets bumped, it doesn't matter because I declare that to you, and you acknowledge that, yes or no. If they say yes, great. If they say no, call a judge.
That's really good sportsmanship advice. Yeah. And that's one thing we do in Legion as well, is when there's so many things that are subjective and like, does I have line of sight to this guy or not? When you're going to make a move and you're playing with somebody who's a good sport, state what your intentions are. I'm trying to move here such that he can see him. All right, well, and then they can kind of help you out and be like, okay, well, that's not quite far enough if that's what you're trying to do. Because then if you guys play that way, it's going to go quicker. Otherwise, then somebody's got to be ultra careful on everything they do, and they're going to take 3 times as long. So,
yeah. And that was the other thing that I think the 4 ace limit cuts down on is you just end up with simpler, straightforward squadron combat. Like, yes, you're moving an extra 3 stands or 4 stands or whatever, but it's now that stand just interacting with its targets usually. Sure. There's none of the whole Howl Runner and Escort and Sunterfell and
well, and I think it also cuts down on time. Like you're saying, it might seem longer, but it seems longer in the beginning with more squadrons. But if I come in and I flak a bunch of generics and I'm hitting them. But if I flak a bunch of aces that have scatter,
do I want to scatter? Because then I have to toss the scatter.
Right. Like I'm scattering, and I'm like, you can't kill them. So it's going to go on, on all 6 rounds. Where at least with generics, you can start coming in, especially with the new hot LTTs that everybody's playing. And just pop
best
generics.
Upgrade in the whole game.
I mean, right there. It's stapled to my Munificent card around here somewhere.
Oh my goodness,
so
it's amazing on the Munificent.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and so the other thing is Intel is a big change to squadrons that might be maybe the most profound. It's probably, I will say definitely, in my opinion, a bigger change than the 4 ace limit, because I think the 4 ace limit hits a certain percentage of builds, because honestly, at least from my play experience, sometimes people run a lot of aces, but most games either have low squadrons or more of a varied blend of squadrons. Very few, like at least of my builds, actually ran more than 4 aces with defense tokens. But Intel is in so many squadron builds. It was almost in every single squadron build, especially if you were running a lot of squadrons. You didn't want a single A-wing to just completely, mess your day up. A single Shara Bay to come in and you're like, crap, it's over now. You win. Good game. So I love the way Intel's changed. And if you guys aren't familiar, basically, let's see if I get this right. I'm doing this off shooting from the hip here. Instead of giving heavy to enemy squadrons at distance 1, Intel now gives grit to friendly squadrons at distance 1.
Yep.
Awesome.
Pretty simple, right? And grit, of course, means you're not prevented from moving while you are engaged by only 1 squadron. But you are still prevented from shooting. So if you're activated, you want to move first, then shoot, and that whole shebang. Did I get that right? Does that sound good to you guys?
Nope, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, and from an Imperial standpoint, I mean, I took the hit on the 4 aces, and I'm happy to see the Rebels took the hit on the Intel because, from an Imperial side of it, I mean, yeah, I run a Jump Master every once in a while, but having Janors come in and fly those bombers around and do whatever they want, and, I can't do anything about it, I'll take the 4 aces.
Yeah. Or Jan and X-Wings was always terrible because
of course.
You're never going to kill the X-Wings because Jan's just going to keep sprinting in her braces. It doesn't even matter if you get accuracies.
Right. Saber was the only thing helping out, so that was the only way. But it was only a perfect, placement to be able to hit Jan without hitting some of those X-Wings. So I think it's a good change. I think it'll work out.
Yeah, and it still keeps the spirit of Intel because Intel still does and this is something I think this change is really nice because I'm going to draw a lot of comparisons to and I don't know how many of you guys play or have played X-Wing, but when X-Wing did their 2nd edition, they changed almost every single card. And they put them back in the game, but now the cards had significantly different functions. Like Intel might now give your nearby ship a squadron token or something totally different, right? I'm paraphrasing because it's not. But yeah, that's kind of how different a lot of the cards were in X-Wing 2nd edition. And so I would think, well, this gives me a reroll. No, it doesn't give you a reroll. It doesn't give you a free token anymore. It gives you this instead, and it's totally different. At least when you're list building and stuff, a lot of these changes the things are still going to be along the same spirit. It's still going to do the same thing it did, just maybe not quite as well. And that's good. It's helpful for an old fart like me whose brain is slowly starting to corrode and rust away, and I can't really make new memories anymore. So I have to keep going with the old memories until I get a firmware upgrade. So
version what 1.1 what are we on at this point?
1.5.
1.5. So.
1.6 is about as high as I can go before I just need to trade the whole thing in for a new CPU.
That's it.
Skynet, Cyberdyne Systems. No,
I think the most interesting part of the Intel change for me, and I think this applies to both Rebels and Imperials, it emphasizes tactics for the squadron play, not just positioning. Position. Don't get me wrong. Positioning is still important, especially for stuff like Jan, Escort, Sunjer, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But now you have a lot of tactical choices where previously it was, all of my squadrons are in this ball, all of your squadrons are in that ball. In most squad-on-squad games, they're going to end up running into each other, and we're going to see who comes out on top.
Right.
Now, you have lists that still want to be, I'm in a group, we're working together, and you have lists that want to spread out. They want to use speed or asteroid or obstacles to maneuver. You no longer have this Intel, like, trump card. You brought a medium screen. I brought a lot of bombers and Intel. Who cares?
Right.
There's now tactics on both sides. That's the other.
And I think it's pretty obvious when you look at what was hit.
Squadron wings that are medium sized.
Yeah.
Previous to now was you had 100 plus or sharp
2 A-wings. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Now you can bring 3 X-wings in Jan and like get value out of them.
Yeah.
Since they can't all be ignored by a single. I think there's another winner here. And Jeremy, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I butted in on you. I apologize, Matt. But I was saying that it's kind of obvious to see what they were hitting because, you know, they got rid of Intel the way it was, and then they changed Yvaris completely.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I mean, so that, you know,
I don't know about completely. It still does. It still does the same mission.
It's just slightly not as good. I mean, come on now. You add 1 blue die, so yeah.
It doesn't have to be a blue. It can be whatever. It can be a black. It's just one of the same that was already in their attack
that's
pool.
right. In their attack pool. So I mean, but it's kind of obvious what they were shooting for on that one. So
well, you wanted it to be additive as opposed to multiplicative because if they ever like Luke Skywalker is a great example of that, right? He's got that black die. That's great. Oh, he still can add he can still get 4 damage, and that's great. He can still get the same number of damage, but now he's not going to get that critical effect with Dodonna twice.
You can't one-shot a MC-30 and one-shot.
I one-shotted an interdictor on a single activation one time that had Luke go first, pulled the crit that took down all the shields, and then I shot through and just happened to roll like the perfect storm and double arc when the shields were up, and I think the actual player forgot to redirect, or no, he forgot that he had contained to stop Luke's crit, which he totally could have done. Regardless, I mean, I'm counting his accident to make my point here, which is probably a bad point. But yeah, when something's multiplicative, it makes it harder to design new content because you have to weigh everything against the worst case scenario.
Right. And
if they want to do, a new X-wing someday that has a cool critical effect, now you have to. And who is the Y-wing pilot?
Oh God, with the shields.
Yeah, the shield.
What's her name? Yeah,
Nora.
Nora. Oh,
that's another example, right?
Now.
All that, that critical effect, and now all of a sudden, Yvaris could have made all that happen twice, ripped those shields down twice as fast, and I feel it's a good balance, and it gives you a little more consistency on the plus side. In the event you're not running Bomber Command Center or something like that, a B-wing rolling 2 black and a blue is a lot more likely to not have a bad day and get all blanks.
It means 10 num can't kill my entire squad ball, is what you're saying? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I detect much salt in you, Jeremy.
Not at all. I think I have a token around here somewhere, a salt token from that. So yeah.
To wrap things up with Intel too, I wanna throw something by you guys and see what you think about this. I think one of the winners in the Intel change is heavy squadrons because I used to run my first list that I did really, really well with. I was running those bombers that had the Rebel bombers that had grit. They came in the Rogues and Villains pack. The
Skirgs.
The Skirgs. Great, but they're underappreciated because the B-wing is almost as good, right? But the Skirgs with grit was huge because And going in the same thing with like Decimators or Lambda. The Lambda is actually the biggest one. The Lambda would have heavy, and I would run that with Valen Rudor. And I'm like, oh, even if you have grit, the Lambda's heavy, but you are engaged by 2, so the heavy still counts as half of locking down grit. Whereas the old Intel, it wouldn't do anything. So it's like I feel like all the heavy keywords have kind of gone up, half a notch, with that. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, it all depends on, unless you're running all heavy, and then we'll forget about it. But I think balance is kind of the key here. Run for more of a balanced squadron presence. You'll be able to get away with more.
Right. And I think that's
British, and you just run a bunch of YV666s.
Well, there you go. Yeah. But I think that's to your point, though. I think that it seems like a lot of the stuff, especially squadron play, has leaned more toward balance, more of a balance play than being able to kind of min-max, saying, okay, I've got a bunch of X-Wings and Jan, and I can just roll through and, use Yavaris and all that. So it's kind of toned it down a little bit, but, to your point, Matt, it's added a bit more tactics to it, which I like. The 4 aces as well, which is good.
Yeah. So I want to, unless we have anything else on squadrons right now, I'm going to kind of move along a little bit to a ship-based change, and that's the evade change, which is a really interesting change. What do you guys think of the evade change?
It's so good. It's so needed.
All right, Derek, you want to describe it for everybody, or?
So I mean, who has benefited the most from this, and what ship do you probably don't even see all that often? The Imperial Raider. Because the Imperial Raider had those 2 evades, but then it just would die to squadrons because
it's a close range ship. That's great.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
The Raider loves this.
Yeah,
the Raider goes
loves
from you occasionally see Iden Corvus to there's a reason to take more than one now.
Yes,
right.
Maybe
especially with other card changes. But with the new change, what it means now that at close range, when the Raider is being attacked by squadrons, which was typically its primary menace, it can at least now re-roll some of that damage away. I mean, it may still re-roll into killing you, but at least it gives them some ability to survive. Same thing with, like, hammerheads. I mean, how many Rebel players who flew hammerheads against 2 ship would just cry as their hammerheads would just explode against squadrons because there's just nothing they could do about it. And so
your TIE bomber rolls up on a CR-90 like, here's a double hit.
Here's a double,
like,
yeah.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
You're forgetting the greatest ship in the Rebel Alliance, the Nebulon. Even now, it doesn't even need the redirect because it's got 3 defense tokens that work, right?
That's true. Yeah.
I love
but
Nebulons.
The change just makes it, again, it's another hammer against squadrons, because as we've seen with every single Worlds, what wins Worlds, you bring squadrons. You've never seen a squadron-less list at top 2 ever. Not to my knowledge, anyway.
I think Q just tried a little bit.
You guys are scared because you guys are all scared. All these guys that go to the tournaments and go to all the worlds because you're scared. You don't want to have to fly out and pay for a hotel and pay for the gas and airfare to go to a place and risk not winning. But guess what? You're not going to win anyway. There's only one winner. So you know what? Take a chance. Flip the meta on its head and run Akbar Nebulons.
We had it.
Run Akbar Nebulons.
Right.
I dare
you would have gone squadronless? Okay.
And the second part of the evade change, too.
I'm going to hold you to that at Nova.
Now that evades for small ships, because, again, when large ships were throwing all this dice at these small ships, they're kind of like, oh, I canceled one, but now I still explode. Again, now them being able to spend and discard and evade against a larger ship and just being like, you know what? Get rid of those 2 damage, 2 of your dice that probably were doubles, and now it's more survivable for them. They're able to be more competitive because
or 3
again,
the Onager,
not a great place. Yeah, freaking Onager.
So like, as an example of this, a couple of months ago, this was middle of September. The pandemic kind of died down around DC, so we did Star Wars Armada in the park. We went out, we had a great time. I brought a list. It was dumb. It had 4 Raiders in it.
Doesn't sound dumb to
me. I already knew the evade change was coming because tester. So I kept a little count in the back of my head every time the Raiders would have re-rolled the damage. I lost. We played 2 games, so 8 Raiders, 7 of them died. When I went back and counted...
You ran 8 Raiders?
Well, there were
2 in
games
each.
of 4. So one game I lost all 4. The other game I lost 3 of them.
I was about to say, can you fit 8 Raiders in a build? Is that even...
No.
Hold on, I'm pulling up Ryan Kingston's fleet builder right now.
Here we go.
You continue. I'm gonna fleet build.
Video's changed now. Here we go. It's going to no fleet build.
Anyway, I would have saved at least 2 more.
Sure.
And potentially as many as 4 more of them across the 2 games would have gotten away. Because if you park a Raider or a CR-90 or even a Nebulon showing its side arc in the front arc of an ISD or a Starhawk, the new Evade means it might live, but it's still probably dead. What the new Evade means very realistically is if you can get into the side arc, where previously extended damage staying there would have brought you down, because those side arcs are still as mean as your front is. Now you're going to skitter away, and you'll only have 1 or 2 hull. You'll have 1 or 2 shields. Your evade tokens are probably gone. But
yeah, but it doesn't. I mean, but at least you used them, though. That's the whole point.
Now you're using them, and you're alive.
Yep.
I got news for you. You can fit 8 Raiders.
There you go. He built it.
You can do 8 Raiders with Darth Vader. Vader Raider.
Oh, God.
The Vader Raider build.
Vader.
No, you do it with Ozzel. New Ozzel is amazing.
Oh, man. New Ozzel is the winner.
No,
my God.
Just stay at speed 4. Just ram them to death. And Vader gives you... This one, you don't have to put ordnance experts on anybody. You don't need to put ordnance experts on anyone. Just Vader. You got... Dude, that's beautiful.
No, Ozzy is definitely a sleeper hit of the card pack. This is a 1.5.
Ozzy's nice.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a question.
I think Tim would disagree with you because Constantine works with SSDs now. Duh.
Okay. Look.
We're going from technically exists to technically exists in more places.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna call Ian on that one.
Here's the thing. All right. So Constantine. When I had Michael on the show for the interview, I'll give you a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, because to try and get an interview with FFG has never been easy. I've been trying for years, and this year, because of Gen Con not happening, I think I finally got my foot in the door, and they're like, all right, well, we got to get some press out there, so we'll give this asshole an interview. Pardon my language. I don't usually curse, but that time I gave it anyway. But it finally happened, and that's not a Michael thing. That's, I think, corporate stuff, But I don't know. I'm just kidding. Oh, shit.
No, hey, I agree with you. We waited till Brooks left before we got an interview with him, so that makes sense.
But there's limits to how many things you can kind of get spoiled, because a lot of leaks and cards and stuff like that. And to be fair, there were so many card changes that he could have given me a couple, but certain things weren't approved. So I was hinting around Constantine, because while I didn't know for sure, I had a pretty good feeling he was a prime target to get some attention, because he was such trash beforehand. So I was like, I really pushed my luck on that one, just trying to get some kind of spoiler, and I kind of overreacted a little bit, because he was he gave me a little bit, and he kind of described the methodology without giving me the card text, and I'm like, man, I wanted the card text. I wanted to be one of those cool people that's like, look, we got a new card, only and put my watermark over it, so you can't even do it without, so you can't even share it on your own blogs without it having Crabbok right. No, I probably wouldn't have gone that far. But that would be a low blow. That would be cruel. But here's the other thing: is the change you talked about being able to discard the evade. My takeaway after reading this is it doesn't state that it has to be green when you're doing it to discard. So if you're spending an orange one and it's going to go anyway against a larger ship, might as well take. You're guaranteed. Now you're gonna get the double, the one extra die modification if you want to. You're gonna have that option. So really, it's just across the board. And of course, if you have to, if it means life or death, then you do it for a green one. But usually, you spend that orange one to get the, to get the double power, which is beautiful, man. That's and that was one of my things. That's how I'm reading it. Do you guys agree with that?
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
Derek, feel free to tell me I'm wrong, but I'm.
So how does that interaction work with admonition, though?
So remember, admonition, when you choose to use its card effect, you're spending that token for the card effect, not for its usual effect.
Okay, gotcha.
What he said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So admonition is
all the dice with admonition. That's what he said down there. Yeah, that's
he's over there.
So actually, you bring up a really good point. Matt, you shut up for a second. Okay, so a lot of people have been really confused about how evade works with Mon Mothma and Iden Versio now. About like, can I reroll 2 die and cancel 2 die? And the answer to that is no. Or with Mon Mothma, they wanted to reroll like 5 dice, and like no, because in fact, which a lot of people don't read, I know, I do. In Mon Mothma, it specifically states, when you choose to utilize their card ability, it is an alternative way to spend that evade effect, not in addition to. So you can either re-roll 2 dice when you discard that evade token with Iden Versio, or you can cancel 2 dice. You can't do both.
Wait, how can Iden Versio cancel a second die?
Because if you are on a raider with Iden Versio and you discard the evade token, you are still affecting 1 die and the second die, and instead of re-rolling 2, you're canceling 2.
Oh, so the evade's change doesn't just affect the default evade; it affects all alternate uses of evade. That's the precedent. So if they come up with a thing that says like you can spend an evade to gain 5 victory tokens, you're going like, boom! I actually gain a 6th victory token.
Well, this is where we are getting to some really rules lawyer.
I know it is. I know it is. This is going to be beautiful. We're going to put you through the ringer here.
In the rules, it states you need to discard an evade token, not something that gives an evade effect. Like for example, Sha La 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 La. That new title from Clone Wars.
The munificent title that's not Tide of Progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That is inescapably clear.
Right.
That one gives you an ability to spend a defense token for the evade effect, but it's still not an evade token. So some players have tried to discard a defensive token, like Salvo, and be like, oh, I want to cancel 2 dice or reroll 2 dice. Like, well, no, that's actually not an evade token. You're just utilizing the effect. For Iden Versio, you're still discarding the physical token with evade, and therefore you're able to cancel 2 dice because you still have discarded the token, but instead of re-rolling 2 dice, I'm canceling 2 dice.
Sure. So my issue with all of that now, I'm going to preface this whole complaint with saying I believe you. You're like the current judge, right? You're like the high marshal of Armada right now. So
he's buttering you up, Derek.
Yeah, he really is. Here comes
I'm in a council, okay.
But my complaint is that when rewording all these cards, Iden Versio was not reworded, especially when you compare her to somebody who does almost the same thing, and that's Expert Shield Tech, right? Expert Shield Tech, for you guys who aren't aware, I don't have graphics loaded up, so. Sue me for that. Sorry, I don't have the graphic, but you can look it up if you want to pull up Ryan Kingston's here. Expert Shield Tech is a 5-point officer. Came out with Rebellion in the Rim, I think. When spending defense, while defending, when spending defense tokens, when you spend a redirect defense token, you may reduce the total damage from the attack by 1 instead of resolving that token's effect. Iden Versio is worded almost the same way, but she doesn't say instead, and that's a huge,
exactly like Mon Mothma,
right? And since and I see where you actually, instead of just saying I am the law like Judge Dredd and like this is the way it is, you've explained it like here I'm citing example in the FAQ for Mon Mothma's, and this is falling along those lines, and I get that. I think it in the future though. I think Iden Versio needs an FAQ and possibly
she does need a clarification on her card. Yeah. I do agree.
There's a bunch of cards that need.
There's so many cards. Engine Text is brand new and it needs a new clarification.
Oh gosh, I haven't seen that one yet. But let's table that for the end because we've talked about evade. I want to keep the discussion moving because.
Sorry, just to jump in about the MC30 real quick and evening out stuff. We were talking about that in Squadrons. I feel like now it's not ridiculous to prefer to take Foresight over Admonition. Everybody always was like, Admonition, why would I take anything else? But Foresight now, I mean, that's amazing. You get
especially
to
with Mon Mothma.
It's yes, exactly. Especially, yeah. But I like how they're evening things out a little bit. That was nice. It's. I'll expect to see a few more Foresight. You're right.
Really, yeah.
And also because Admonition has to be a green one. Like that's huge, yeah. And so like the times you're going to use it are fewer and farther between. Now you're not going to be spending those orange tokens for that.
And you lose more to do it.
Yeah.
Because previously what you could do with Admonition is be like, I'm going to spend this evade, cancel that double at long range, and then I will discard the same token and get rid of that other one. And now it's you're either canceling one and keeping the token or canceling Still only one.
Yeah, because you weren't spending the same token. You were spending it once and then discarding it in a whole separate effect. Yeah. Crazy, crazy stuff. So, and of course the chat is bringing up Beck, Commander Beck, which is...
no. Yeah, Commander Beck and I have history. We have so much
Stop
history.
pushing Derek's buttons.
Please,
calm down.
please.
Gaze into Baby Yoda's eyes.
Okay,
it's going to be okay.
If you show up with a suit of Commander Beck cards, I probably will punch you. I mean, that's just... Okay, Geek 19, this is not a challenge. If he watches this, nobody tell Geek 19 because he will.
The suit.
He will totally do it. He has the suit already.
He's got the suit.
Does he have a suit of Commander Beck? Oh my gosh, that's
just wait till the tournament.
He would not print a suit that's just Beck. Now, would he wear a suit and then get like a Beck kerchief and wear that as his pocket square?
Oh, there you go.
His tie. I bet you
or as a tie.
Get him a Commander Beck tie for Christmas. You still have time. And if you're looking for last minute Christmas shopping, by the way, we got all kinds of shirts and masks and bags and socks. We have socks now.
Commander Beck gator neck? Is that what you have over there? You don't have one of those?
Yeah, it's Commander Beck once he became Darth Maul's apprentice. Or Imperial masks. All right. Well, anyway, forget about that. You don't have to buy any of that stuff. It's overpriced anyway. So, wait, this is my show. I shouldn't be saying. No, it's a great value. It's a great value. All right.
What's the next one? Keep us going. Come on.
Next one is pass tokens, which I think it's going to be a bigger deal in the long run. Basically, you had with 3 cards that were gone. Your strategic advisor,
terrible
and your
trio.
Strategic advisor, Price, and then Jimmy Smith.
Dale. Yeah, right.
Jimmy Smith.
No,
Jimmy
Santos.
Is gone.
It's President Santos. Come on, get it right.
Like I say, Bale went back in time like a Terminator movie and killed Price and strategic advisor to save us all. Okay.
They'll probably come back at some point, but then again, at least that was the plan. Like that's one of the things that Michael Gurnis had said is like we're looking at bringing them back at some other point in time. Whether or not that intention continues through the future, we shall see. But I think it's going to be interesting the way things play out with pass tokens, because now you're going to compare fleet sizes, and it's just going to go by number of ships. I had initially thought that the size of the ship was going to have a direct correlation on the number of pass tokens you got, but it has only an indirect because of the fact that large ships tend to be more expensive. But if you've got 8 ships, like 8 Vader Raiders, and I've only got 2, well, I'm going to get the difference in pass tokens, with the exception that if I happen to have first player, I'm going to get -1 token than I would have had otherwise. But there's a couple of restrictions on when you can pass, correct? So basically when you pass, it's almost the same thing as using strategic advisor, minus the fact that you don't lose the ability, like if you've already activated his ship, because the pass tokens don't go on a ship. They sit on your side of the board, basically.
Yep. And you cannot pass twice.
In a row.
Twice in a row, right.
Yes.
And you cannot pass as your first activation.
Where your 8 Vader Raiders, let's say I bring 2 ISDs because I'm crazy and I'm dumb, and you bring 8 Raiders, I can make you activate 3 of them before my second ISD has to go, because I can pass, ship, pass, and then I have to activate the other ISD.
Right.
The fact that you'll still have 5 Raiders doesn't matter.
I thought you couldn't pass as your first, or is that only if you're a first player?
I think that's an only if first rule.
Yeah.
Eric, do you remember?
Oh, I am.
Oh, man.
Oh, no, you got him.
The holy trinity of brains has to look to the RRG, which is this is a teaching moment for all of you guys out there. Before you jump into Discord or Facebook or Twitter or Reddit and be like, guys, what do I do? Check the rules reference guide first. And
it just says when it's the opponent's turn to activate a ship, they can pass. So I don't think that there's a restriction. I'll have to dig deeper. That's just my initial glance looking at the rules, though.
Okay. Yeah, we'll find it. We'll find it. You know what? Maybe somebody in the audience will find it. Who but yeah, but
I'll give you 5 Karnak bucks.
Yeah, well,
they are not redeemable.
I am almost positive. I would bet my reputation that at least somewhere, if you're the first player, you cannot pass as your very first activation.
I mean, the RG doesn't say first, so it doesn't.
I thought that was in there, but I may be misremembering.
Oh,
yeah, how many versions are you familiar with? So
I knew I would stump you guys, and I just had to line up enough talking points to find one.
It's because I didn't buy enough dial packs. I don't have enough pass tokens, so I'm not familiar with them. I need to pick up some more of those.
I only have the core sets come with pass tokens. You said you got
dude. They come with like 6 of them. It's like you get so many
for all those beta raiders. You need more than that.
You got more than one separatist core set. You don't have enough pass tokens.
I need more pass tokens.
Are you going to play one of those sector fleet games? Where
I need one
super starters.
You're not going to be able to pass that many times.
Man,
anyway.
I played that game at Nova. 2 SSDs. I mean, that was a fun list.
I honestly don't see anybody ever needing more than 2 pass tokens, like realistically.
Oh, yep, Crabbok is correct. The first
here we go.
pass their turn if they have activated at least one ship, and they have fewer unactivated ships than the second player. So you're right. The first player at least needs to have an activated
but
ship.
The second player can pass as their first activation.
That's a specifically first player must, not a second player can.
I remember looking over it, but it's been. And here's the thing: this is kind of why we're doing this, because there's so much new right now between the AMG news, not knowing what the future holds. If you play multiple games, there's been a lot of rules. Legion just had a big rules update. X-Wing just had a whole nother wave come out. X-Men just came out from Marvel Crisis Protocol. Of course, that's just me because that's in my sphere. And then
that's AMG now. That's in the same world.
It's all AMG, right? You know, freaking. There's so much, and so it's a lot to absorb and to kind of take all of this in. But yeah, and so that's kind of one of those other things. Is even if I've only got 2 and I'm hoping to be able to pass or whatever, I'm still going to have to move that 1-star destroyer first if I'm running like 2 ship or something.
Which, to be perfectly honest, I'm fine with that.
Eric Birch has it in chat as well.
That's Eric. Something that you should have thought about. Like this is not a surprise that if you take first player and you have few activations, or if you have very little bid, you are running the risk that somebody else will come along and say, no, you're first player. You always have to have a ship go.
Yeah. And that's gonna work great sometimes, and it's not gonna work that great other times. I mean, honestly,
occasionally it'll blow up in their face. And it's your job to figure out how to make that happen.
A lot of times by turn 3 or 4, you're wanting to go first. You're wanting to activate a ship right away. You're not passing that much anyway. Like by turn 5, like you're usually not passing. You know, there are cases where you would.
It too. I mean, you got to remember, you know, you use it, you lose it. So. You know, it's not like the SSD where you could just flip it every round.
The pass tokens are not expendable. They're exhaustible, and you get them back.
Oh, you get it back? Okay, wow, I'm totally wrong on that. Am I totally wrong on that?
Hold on, that's what
really?
I asked Michael that.
I thought they went.
He said you expend them. Now, I'm just going off of word of mouth. Here's the thing. I know from having play-tested games myself that the rules go through so many iterations that sometimes you get like 3 or 4 versions jumbled in your head. So we really have to rely on what the RRG says as far as what happens when you spend a pass token.
Wait, help me out here. So they do discard, right? Yeah, they are gone. Oh, okay.
Which is, to me, one of the most interesting parts about them, because you can end up with a variety of situations where, for example, if you are first player and you have Demolisher or you have a bunch of bombers and you get an early pick-off, that can radically change the second player's activation set still for whether or not they can and how many pass tokens they can. And you also have the whole, like, it's like a poker game, basically, between first and second player. Whoever has the pass tokens, whoever doesn't is trying to draw them out.
Right, you're trying to make them spend them.
Trying to get the other person to waste them on activations that don't matter. And so you have this, the person without pass tokens, and this is irrespective of first or second player, is under a pressure to mitigate that problem. And every list should have, how do I mitigate the other person's pass tokens, whether that's ship kills, whether that's maneuver, whether that's whatever. And then conversely, if you know I'm bringing 2 ships, I'm bringing 3 ships, whatever, you should have plans for how do I make sure that I don't get pickoffs on me, and how do I make sure that my pass tokens aren't baited out when they're just going to be wasted. That's an interesting additional level of tactics and strategy that I really like about this change, that it broadens the field for what you can do.
Yeah, I like that as well, because it means that when they spend a token, you know that you've gotten them to spend it, and now they're just a little bit, you've gained an advantage by doing that, by making them spend it. So I like it. I didn't really thought about it from the poker standpoint of play the player on that one, but you're right. It is kind of a little mini game that, you have the pass tokens or I have the pass tokens. I don't want to spend them. I want to hold on to them. And if you force me to do them
until they're impactful.
It's the same thing with like Dooku. If you run Dooku and you got those raid tokens, and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you. Oh, you've got squadrons, and I've got 2 squadron options on Dooku, but you think I'm going to do it on turn 3, don't you? You think so? So you're purposely not going to plan a squadron command there? Boom! Surprise! I held it.
What was the clarification on Dooku? Do you reveal those tokens to the other player at the beginning of the game, or are they hidden?
You caught that, did you?
I couldn't remember what. I was like, yeah, right, because I had them hidden, and the player I played the other day was like, "You got to show me those," and I don't think I do.
Well, here's my take. Since I don't know, here's what I would guess: tokens are not single-sided. All of those command tokens are double-sided. It says you must place the token on the card.
My gold tokens are single-sided, so it's black on the other side. You can't tell it's covered, so I can flip them.
I'm going to get my tokens right now. I'll be right back.
This is not considered hidden information. If a player asks you what tokens you have on Dooku's card, you have to tell them.
All right, okay.
So
start the game though.
So to follow up on that, so Dooku is not hidden information. If they ask, you have to tell them, but you don't have to tell them until they ask.
Right, exactly. I can hold on to it and just play coy like I'm cracking.
To all of you watching out there, this is not licensed to be rude. Okay? But going from that, for Tarkin and for Thrawn, do their rewordings...
Oh, yeah, do they have to tell?
Redesign of the cards to fit the 1.5 rules changes, the mechanical changes.
Okay.
Are those now revealed at the start of the game as well?
All right, so I missed everything that you guys just said. This is the first time I've abandoned my own live stream in search of evidence. But no, I just grabbed one of the cardboard out of my 6 Clone War starters. Yeah, the tokens are double-sided.
Mine aren't double-sided. I have the Gold
promos?
Worlds ones.
Yeah,
I have the Gold World ones.
Okay, but
and
the
they're
thing is,
single-sided.
that's public information.
They're legal play. Those are FFG products. I can play that.
Dude, I know you're vetoed. That's public information.
I can flip over one token at a time and then move them around like the cup game there, and then flip another one.
The shell game.
The shell game.
That is absolutely unsporting, and I would totally veto you. But the other thing too is because there is a rule that says that that 2 of them, or at least 2 of them, must be different. So now there's a requirement to prove that you followed the rule. So yeah.
But you're right. It does add that in, that little poker of I'm picking the tokens, and you got a lot of squads over there, so I'll pick 2. But when do you do them? I actually, when I played, and this is only a couple games so far of the Separatists I've played, but I actually had 2 squads in a engineering against my opponent who had a pretty heavy squad list, and I actually didn't do the squad when he thought I was going to do it, and I did engineering, and it just messed him all up, because then I did the squad the next time, and he wasn't ready for it. So it is again kind of that little mini game, like you're saying, with the pass tokens.
Sure.
So it is interesting. It's a good card. I like it.
The very interesting thing is, as I learned today, is that the pass tokens are actually discarded. The funny thing is, because I'm almost sure, I'll have to go listen to my interview with Michael again, but I could have sworn he said that they were that they were exhaustible, and he may have just meant to say they were expendable. Sometimes people just misspeak. I do it all the time, so I'm just so used to it. But I haven't really looked that up, so that does actually really change the way that's going to work. Although I will say, like, if you're playing right now, you're probably playing a lot of the new Clone War stuff, and fleets are, by and large, going to be similar size, right? There's not that many options for these new factions right now, so you're probably running very similar fleets, and you're not going to see a lot of pass tokens right now. But I like the way that it works.
And that hard cell swarm.
Yeah, I want to totally do that. I mean, it's a lot of red dice, and I love, they just got to come straight at you, I mean, but it's the same thing as Nebulons too, man. Nebulons can do the same thing. They're weak on the sides and strong in the front. Same thing, man. You can give them Akbar too. So if you have to shoot out the sides, you got this beautiful.
Oh no! What market? We already talked about Akbar Nebulons. There you go.
It's my favorite thing.
I knew that would come up.
Yeah. I mentioned it once before, but it was like we were all shouting over each other, so it was nonsense. So we have I want to take some questions, and then we can also talk about some of the more interesting card changes too. I saw an interesting one here, and I got to scroll up and find it. True Zeriel asks, Eric, you can. Well, he's talking to somebody else in chat. I guess he's not asking us. Well, I'm taking your question anyway.
Eric Birch will start messaging me in a second, so that's fine. So we're asking now. So
he says you can use Sado on Salvo, right?
Yes.
Question mark. I'm like, and I think that's a really good question, because you are, from a certain point of view, it might seem like you're adding dice, but you're actually replacing. So replacing is fine. Adding, is not. Is that, you guys agree with that?
It's the difference between I can Sato off my insert ship here, my MC-80, and now it's 2 black dice, versus when I salvo off of an MC-30 with reactive gunnery, I'm not allowed to toss my external racks into the pool.
Ryan.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. I hadn't even thought of running Sato with like salvo stuff. And I think a big reason for that is now with like reactive gunnery, we have a lot more salvo options for the Empire and the Rebellion, and so it's gonna really change up fleet building. I think salvo is the greatest out of all the changes that we've seen. I'm gonna back it up, because I think Wave 8 was really the beginning of the Clone Wars. Kind of it introduced so many. It kind of prepped us. It was the
prototype.
Yeah. And salvo is the most interesting change, because I think I've been out of practice. I don't play online or any of the TTSs or the vassals or anything like that. Gosh, I sound like an old man. I don't use the internets like you young whippersnappers do.
The vassals.
The MTV generation.
Lord, my vassals are
the vassals on the internet.
Somebody go get me my knights.
Anyway, wow. This is why I shouldn't be drinking scotch when we do live streams, but it happens.
Should be, yes.
But still, there's so many times being out of practice where I'm like, and I'm going to shoot that ship for the heck of it. Spoiler warning, in the first Clone Wars Armada battle report that I have coming up soon, you'll see that there's at least one point where I say, you know what, hell with it, I'm going to shoot that ship, and he's like, okay, good. I'll salvo. And I knew I wasn't going to get any damage through anyway. I shot for the heck of it on general principle, and I took some damage in return, which was really stupid. And these are things that you shouldn't do. It really makes you think about, is it worth it to shoot this ship? It's beautiful, beautiful change to the game.
Yeah.
All right. So what are some of the cards that you guys were most interested on, and how they were changed?
We already covered Ozzy. That was my card I love.
So for people who don't know, Ozzel now doesn't require a nav command. He just lets all your ships change their speed by 1 automatically.
Yep.
He's amazing now.
Oh yeah.
Any commander that doesn't make you command dependent, the problem is, I think I would, in a lot of cases, I still prefer Jerjerrod, but at least Ozzel's cheaper and is now command independent. So, but yeah, he's very nice, no doubt about it. Nice is as much as I'm willing to give him. I mean,
that's it.
Yeah.
Ozzel and Tarkin are both now usable.
Tarkin, oh my god, yes.
Yeah, Tarkin for sure. For me, I'm most excited about Tarkin because I ran So Schmitty lives near my area, and Schmitty, he ran Dumpster Fire, and for forever I'm like, I can find a way to make Tarkin work, and so he helped me out make a trash compactor list, and it worked when I took it to tournaments and to to LVO. It was fine, but it just was like, I just needed a few more upgrades on some other things to make it viable. And with this change, now I have it, and it's a whole new world. You wouldn't think 10 points is much, but list building, it changes everything.
Sure.
I'm very excited for it.
Sure. A lot of people in the chat are fans of the Tarkin change as well, which is the emphasis on tokens. I think time is going to tell, because I think there's because there are commanders that are action independent, and you don't have to run upgrade cards that require tokens. It's totally, very easy to make builds that are not token dependent. So we'll see what the meta kind of works into. I think like in my area in Orlando, I started running squadronless builds and having a lot of success with them early on, and as a result, a lot of other people kind of followed suit, and then it became rare to see heavy squadron builds, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in with 134 points of B-wings and just runs the table on everybody, and then it kind of slowly starts to shift back. But it's interesting. I'm curious to see the way the meta is gonna creep in that way, because if nobody cares about commands, then people like Dooku are gonna fade away until all of a sudden it changes.
I don't know. I think Dooku was brought in at the time when everything, especially the clones, are adding a lot of tokens around. I mean, it feels like playing Legion when you're playing against a clone player. So it's like, you can use his token for this thing, for his token. Oh, and you give him a token. You know, when I like I said, I played a couple games, and one of them I just sat back and I said, man, you do your thing. You do your thing. You let me know when you're done. You're just navigation officer, the clone gunner, the this and adding tokens. Like, I don't know what's happening.
I don't feel like the clones have, like the clones and the supers have all that much right now. And part of it is because there's hardly anything that's out there right now. Like you don't have the Tarkin or the the dumpster fire. Gosh, what's it? Garm? Thank you.
Garm, yeah.
You don't have Garm or Tarkin for those guys yet. I'm sure they'll eventually get some kind of token commander, but but for right now, the commanders you have don't really care about tokens. Well, I guess maybe Dooku does, but in the other way around. But
Dooku's the inversion.
Yeah, I feel like I'm more likely to want to run things like CommsNet and go for the eyes, boo. What's his name?
Hondo,
thank you. My friends, very good. We're going to give tokens for everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So many stories I could tell. So many of them true.
He's so great. I love Jim Cummings. He's a national treasure. But yeah,
I mean, but you have parts resupply, munitions. You know, you've got
there's a couple
cards. Like, I mean, yeah. So you're definitely moving a lot of tokens around, and it is nice how I guess nice is one way to put it, but it's gotten a little more complicated with a lot of the tokens. You know, with the cards that have tokens to activate or reactivate them, and then cards that are giving out tokens. So it is a bigger part of it, but I think that's a move. It was kind of an obvious move the game was moving towards, is that, in any game, in the first few waves, you're dealing with Mahdi. You increase the health of a ship. Okay, it's pretty basic. And then, you start to get a little more complicated. And I think now we move to that, the token complication part of the game.
They're the currency of the game.
Right, exactly.
And I think there's going to be some confusion, too. Like, tokens that start on a card and that little blue bar on the left side, they're assigned at the beginning of the game. They stay on that card, but you can't, spend those unless the card says you can. Like, you couldn't spend a concentrate fire that starts on this one dude to re-roll a die, because it's the currency that's on that card. It's the charges, so to speak, that are on that card. Yes. Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if this has been added to the RRG or something that I'm just a stickler for, but I usually ask my opponents to place the tokens on the ship bases. I don't know if that's a hard, fast rule. I know it was in some iteration of it.
I never do.
I can answer this one.
Well, but hold on. But now, answer in a sec. But I'm asking, please put it on the ship bases, because if you put it on the card, the ship card, and you've got cards next to the ship card with all the tokens on it, I mean, I've knocked cards back and forth and tokens back and forth before, and you just lose track of it. So, okay, go ahead, Derek. You got it. Go ahead.
The official answer is you actually place command tokens next to the ship in the play area.
Perfect. That's fine. Perfect.
Which is theoretically where everything is supposed to go.
We're playing X-Wing. You got the dial and
and to be fair, only 2 feet away from my ship is practically right next to it.
I was thinking about
it's touching. It's touching, right? That's the 404. We're going back to that.
Where we both ended up in this scrum.
Oh my god, that was
my ships are in the middle of all of his ships, and his squadrons are climbing all over me. It's like, where the hell?
Hey, it's okay, Matt. It's okay. I cleaned it up. I lost 3 of my ships in 1 round, so it's fine. I cleaned up that scrum pretty easily for you.
I did not kill 3 of your ships in 1 round in either game.
That's how I remember it.
There were 2 rounds both times.
They all exploded. But yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I mean, I'm a stickler for it. I've got some people I've played with that get mad at me that I've asked them to do it, but I asked them not to put it on their ship cards, especially now, because they're, parts resupply is sitting there with all these tokens, and your ship is next to it with all these tokens. I look across the board. I'm like, and then if I have Dooku, you know, they're like, oh yeah, I totally had the token here, but I bumped it. Now I didn't know, and so I
put raid tokens on Dooku just because, like, you know, I could get away with it now, and I recognize that that's technically improper, but I'm like, you know, all right, what are you gonna do? You know,
you mean put the raid? You mean in the beginning of the game, put the 3 raid tokens?
Because Dooku technically says put command tokens on them, and then assign raid tokens to the ship based off of the command token that's on a Dooku card. But I'm like, I just put the raid tokens on Dooku cards. So it's simpler. But you know, as long as my opponent doesn't have a problem with it, and that's really where a lot of it boils down to.
It is.
Unless you're playing at the world's final table.
Be an adult. Talk to your opponent.
Yeah.
If your opponent asks you to do something little, like, can you please make sure your command tokens are on your ship base?
Right.
Sure. Great. Yeah. Done.
Hey, I've gotten people who yelled at me about it before and said, I don't want to do it.
Apparently, you've had people that yelled at you because because of the double-sided tokens. They're double-sided, dude. You have to tell them that.
I've had a lot of people yell at me. Hold on a second. Maybe it's me. Nah, it couldn't be me.
All right, so Nerf Herder's got a question.
Possibly.
Nerf Herder's got a question in chat, and he goes, what are your mad scientist ideas with hyperspace rings? I think there's only one use for them right now, but I'm curious.
I'm currently under NDA. I can't discuss my future plans with hyperspace rings.
What about based off of what's currently out there?
You should keep an eye on that card.
I'm going to go ahead and for right now say Arc 170s. They're speed 2. They're kind of like the B wings of the Clone Wars.
From that point of view, like, yes, that's what they're there for.
Right. I think they would say where would you use it, not what is the future.
Like
for the card.
Right.
So,
I was just being facetious.
You guys ND up real quick.
You guys are like, we all know you guys have NDAs. You don't need to brag. You don't be like, well, actually, I have a special blue ribbon.
They're not worth anything anymore. It's over at AMG, so we'll toss them out. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
The challenge with
Gestapo's
going to
come for you.
Is it presents the fighter ambush trap of. Dude, did you accidentally not think through how far those tri-fighters are going to go on round 1?
Oh, the whole way.
Which is the whole way.
Yes.
And then, oh, look, all of your Arc 170s are tied down and 2 of them are dead.
Even if you put them on an obstacle, I still get enough dice. Especially with my unique
Especially with the snipe one that's just like,
he's so good.
Anyway.
Oh, the guy who can't be obstructed, he's amazing. I'll just park him on the station, right? You know, just snipe everybody, no problem. I love it.
Yeah.
The challenge for hyperspace rings is you're going to have to practice. You're going to want to come up with a plan. But the advantage it offers you is if you want to do some sort of complicated, multifaceted deployment where my squadrons are over here and my ships are over here, but they're going to meet here in the middle, now you can do that. I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Sure.
But you can get away with envelopment tricks like that.
I think it also just lets you put the slower squadrons just a little bit farther forward, so this way they meet at the same time, right? Like that's what you always kind of wanted to do with B wings is put them at the farthest forward they could go, and then have your X wings behind them, and then your A wings in the back. So this way, by the time of at the end of round 2, they're all kind of together, as opposed to kind of accordioning.
It's their rapid launch based option.
Oh, of course, that changed.
Yeah, right.
And that's still an option for the clones too, right?
Layer to hyperspace rings. Something you can look at is the whole they must be beyond distance 5 of hostile ships or squadrons.
Right. So I actually I have a question because I don't even know the answer to this.
Oh God, we're doing.
Oh.
So for Scout, which is what hyperspace rings gives, you do not need to be placed at distance 1 to 2 of a friendly ship. Can you place Scout squadrons before a ship?
If you ask me to turn on my TO brain says yes.
So that's an idea.
That kind of all right. So part of me says no because it doesn't specify that, but the name sounds like that would be thematic, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's a really good question.
The rule is
actually do what the card says, not what it doesn't say.
1 to 2 of a ship. The rule is not a ship must be placed first.
Right.
The rule is you must be placed at 1 to 2 of a ship. If that's not there, you don't need the ship.
You don't need the ship.
Wow.
All right. I'm
gonna go look up Scout again now too, because here's the other thing: you can deploy an obstacle, right?
Submitted to the council. Yes. We will discuss it.
Because you
can deploy on obstacles, and then the other thing you can do
you can block deployment from them, can't you?
Well, so the other guy can block your deployment, but then you end up with this whole mind game.
No. I'm saying the other way around. Like if I take my hyperspace ring squadrons and I place one in the enemy's deployment area and one in, like space, that you can't put a ship on top of my squadron, right?
Oh, well, yes, there's that.
Right.
But they could go right next to it.
The 5 bubble.
I mean, but the 5 bubble only affects it once you place the ship or the squadron down. If the enemy hasn't placed their stuff down and I place the 2 squadrons in their deployment area close enough together where they can't place a ship down, I've now blocked them from right? I mean, I can do that.
But you can only do it once because you can't be placed with 1 to 5 of an enemy ship. So it only works if you're the first deployment.
Yeah, the first player.
But they only have 1 ship at that point. And so then if they place 1 ship, I can move to another part and put another 2 squadrons down. And I think you get what, a couple?
Yeah, but who's going to spread their fleet out all that much?
Twice.
A couple times.
Yeah.
Hey, they were looking for mad scientist ideas. I'm just throwing it out there.
This is a mad scientist idea.
If it's something like fire lanes,
mind game though.
Over here. I mean, come on now, can't deploy it.
You still end up with a mind game because, like, you see, I have hyperspace rings and a bunch of Arc 170s, so I'm going to want to put them forward. But maybe for whatever reason, your fleet didn't want to deploy on the front line of your deployment zone.
Right.
So your original plan was, hey, my Gazanti's going to be on the back line. Hey, my TIE bombers are going to be over here because whatever. Well, you had a plan. I'm going to be generous and assume you had a plan.
Nah.
But now you have this pressure to, I don't want his Arc 170s starting on my half of the board. So now my ships have to come forward. Now my squadrons have to come forward. Now, is it going to be really easy to exploit that? No, I have no idea how I would exploit that, but it's an interaction.
So,
it's up to your squad value. That's right. There you go. I thought it was 2. I was trying to remember. Yeah, so it's up to your squad value. Yep,
right,
exactly.
So what do you guys think about the gunnery team's change? Because there's a little bit to unpack there between the trigger case and the impact to huge ships as well.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think the SSD took the hit, but I mean,
the SSD took a hit. I'm not thrilled about that. But as far as if you took a large ship that could take a weapons team slot, and it was not an ISD, it wasn't a black dice ship. So the Kuat, basically, maybe the ISD one if for some reason you brought it. You took gunnery team. Simoons, ISD2s.
Unless it's an Onager and you got Vernillion on there.
So it's just adding cost.
You're taking Tarkin. I mean, that's a reason why, if you're taking like 2 ISDs or 3 Vics or something like that, or something with gunnery teams, just take Tarkin, throw gunnery teams on it, give them concentrate fire tokens every time.
Like ECM. It's adding cost.
Right. Yeah. It's more token management. So that's what we're doing.
I firmly disagree with you guys. I think there's no change to gunnery teams, and I'll tell you why. Because I run
Kingston's builder. Is that why?
No, it's because I run concentrate fire 90% of the time because I love dice, and because sometimes you roll a whole bunch of red dice and they all come up doubles. It happens sometimes, and when it does, it validates the entire year of failures that predated it. On top of that, the SSD, you never have 3 ships in the front arc of the SSD any darn way. It's just nobody's going to do that. Hey, just the fact that you can still have 2 shots out the front means that your opponent's not going to park their whole fleet in the front. They're not going to be like, you're restricted to 1 less shot? Good, let me put my whole fleet in the front of your SSD. It's not going to even change. Like, realistically, there's like 1 game out of 7 where you would have had that amazing, like, perfect three front arc shots. So it's not even going to impact that. So the only change really is that you are forced to spend the concentrate fire command on the first attack. So you don't have the luxury of rolling excellent and then saving the die for the second attack, which I love to do.
Yeah.
But for those folks that want to run Ravager and Krennic, I mean, you're still going to be doing concentrate fire all the time anyway. You run Jerjerrod on the SSD, Ravager and Krennic and like Spinal Armament, and it's just so juicy. It just drips. It just drips with bloody red dice. I just love it.
You're still going to hit with
those. Red dice do a lot more damage than mine do.
Right, exactly. All those blanks are amazing.
Brings a large stake instead of an SSD. That's not tournament legal. I'm sorry.
Akbar
now,
GR75.
if you give that steak to me, it's still not legal, but I'll appreciate the steak.
Yeah. No, I would love to. No, I think it does some. I like that now there's options for weapons team, and unfortunately, that was one of my favorite upgrades. It was one of those auto includes, and I think anything that was an auto include needed to be looked at.
And most of them were.
The only one that I was surprised I thought was going to get changed that didn't, Demolisher, right? It did get changed. I thought the way it was going to be changed was different, because I expected it to be changed, but a lot of cases it's going to be used the same. The only real change is that when you do get that perfect like move and then shoot, and then I get to go first next turn, you can't double arc quite so easily. You have to try to hope that you're at speed 1, so you can like. And this is maybe a good opportunity for Ozzel to come in and really help you like speed up and then slow down very, very quickly. But yeah, what do you think of Demolisher now? Is this still the only title you take for Gladiator?
I mean, my opinion, and I've been vocal about this for a while. People think of Demolisher as like this large killer, like, oh my god, Demolisher just got put down by MC and he's got to run away. That's not where Demolisher wants to be. Demolisher wants to go eat the 4 CR90s that came with it.
Or the Nebs.
The new Demolisher is like, oh, now I have to go eat the 4 CR90s.
Demolisher can't touch the Nebs.
Don't throw me in the Briar Patch, Briar Fox.
Yeah, well, I think the bigger change to Demolishers right now is all of those critical, of those black crit cards that are now exhaustible.
Yeah, I like that.
That's the other thing that whacked triple tapping over the head.
Right.
Yeah. Although the MC75 still can take 2.
It can take a proton and a concussion.
Although
and use them.
And like maybe that's a time where you want to. What is the fire control teams? You could do 2 crits in case you only have single arc. Yeah, in case you only have single arc, then do an exhaust both.
Yeah,
maybe.
But I don't know. I think demo. Getting back to your demo, I think they changed everything about like engine techs, assault protons, assault concussions, demo. Everything was changed.
Ordnance experts.
Ordnance expert, exactly. 2 dice. Yeah, everything was slightly changed around the Demolisher build that I don't think it needed a change, like Yavaris, for example. There wasn't really anything you needed besides Yavaris, so they changed Yavaris. But demo, changing demo just slightly, changing protons or concussions slightly, changing engine tech slightly, all of that I think worked into it and made it less of a threat. Although I've never been able to keep a Demolisher alive until the end of the game, so I don't really care. I don't run them anymore.
Right. Mike is asking, did we talk about flotilla changes? Now, I don't think there were any flotilla-specific changes in 1.5.
There weren't.
No, we did. If you go back to the beginning of the game, though, we did a little recap. The beginning of the game, the beginning of the video. This is not a video. It's not an interact. This is not Cyberpunk 2077. If it did, I would.
None of us. Derek is not sitting there with his hands out of you typing away.
No, he's playing.
Telling Crabbok what to say.
What?
Hacked into the video.
I do have my laptop. I don't have nothing here. What?
Yeah. No, we talked a little bit about them, like on what you thought. Like, I'm not in favor of it being. It's at this point, I'm not in favor of a 2 flotilla cap, but there have been some points made as to why that cap is still there. But I did think at the time that the other changes were sufficient, and but it is what it is. I think in tournaments you see different types of fleets show up, and usually when I play folks, we're a little bit more casual. Even for our smaller tournaments, people are a lot more sporting and casual and just doing fun lists for the most part, rather than like these really try-hards. Like I flew to Worlds, I have to win. We don't run into that.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's like I absolutely get it. And there's a huge part of me that wants to go to like Gen Con and just play in a tournament and run Akbar Nebs and just be like, yeah, I flew here too, and I just want to have fun. Just to like, and maybe it's that so off the wall. Maybe it's so off the wall that it wins because people were not expecting something that ridiculous. And then all of a sudden, we see what bloggers are out there like, Akbar Nebs is the new overpowered meta. I'm like, no, it's not. You just didn't expect
I don't know if you have it on your list, your topics list, but the tournament play versus narrative play. I've been to Worlds, Gen Con, Nova. Everybody's had fun. I don't know, like fun lists and stuff. I've played people that are like, I flew to Worlds and I'm playing this list because it's fun. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, you like to play it, so
it's a great community atmosphere.
So I've never done a narrative.
Everybody's there to have fun. Like, obviously you're going to try to win, but, like, we went out to dinner every night. Like, there were no hard feelings.
Wait, you went out to dinner every night? Did you? You didn't? Oh.
No, that's because you. No, don't.
All right, no, it's cool, man. It's cool, whatever. No, but no. I'm gonna ignore him now. So narrative.
I came and said hi.
So narrative events. It got real awkward.
I wasn't asked to dinner by any of you guys.
No one would. No one would ask us. So we just that's it. No one asked us. So
you
narrative
actually invited me to breakfast. You invited me to breakfast.
Yeah, we always, the Atlanta and Chicago traditions of breakfast.
Yeah, and actually, two of you guys. Derek is the only one I think that did not ever invite me to breakfast. So,
I don't think anyone invited me to breakfast.
Wow.
Wait, there was breakfast at this convention?
I was told there would be pie and punch.
So before I got off track, the narrative events, though. I mean, if anyone's played narrative events, I know Nova's big on them. Noak has run a few, like the pirate fleets and small formats have been run at Worlds and stuff like that. And that is a fun thing to run. I mean, but I've had people show up at the actual tournaments and just kind of show up for fun. And, this had 15 bombers in it. I just wanted to play it. Like, oh, okay.
The team game's usually like that.
Oh man, the team game is so much fun. Unless you don't bring a jump master, and then it's a problem. So that totally didn't happen. So.
Speaking of narrative stuff, and there's somebody talked about Basil said they want a faction conversion kit between factions, Rebel Quasars and Imperial Venators and stuff like that. I want to throw something out there for you guys just to get a rough opinion. And I think I mentioned this in a live stream or a chat somewhere before, but wouldn't it be cool if every ship in the game, and I'm going out there to say even every single ship in the game had a stolen version. Like, you know how you have the front and back sides of all these different cards? Let's say you had a stolen version of each ship. And
Scum and
no, well, I mean, that any faction could use. Like, you've got the Imperial Star Destroyer, but maybe somebody else steals an Imperial Star Destroyer for a thematic play. I'd go so far as to maybe make it, we could give it less dice and maybe take away all upgrades or something like that. If you just wanted it in the build for a theme, and knowing that maybe it might cost more, and it definitely wouldn't be as good, I'm just curious your thoughts on something like that, and maybe it's not legal for tournament play, or maybe it even is, and that's where I'm out there. It's like, if you're just running naked ships, from one faction coming over to another, it doesn't get the benefit of any other upgrade cards or no tech within the faction, but just for thematics. How would you guys feel about something like that? Just off the cuff. I mean, I'm not asking for like an in-depth analysis. You haven't played tested it yet.
Tournament play, because I think everything's been balanced based on the cards, based on the ships, like based on each faction ships. But like I said, I mean, I mentioned the pirate fleet that we played at Nova, and that was
Pirates fun.
Yeah, Pirates great. You take remind me of one upgrade, no uniques, and you can play any ship in your build if you want to, but no uniques.
I think it was only small mediums.
That's what I think it was. Yeah, small mediums. But I mean, that was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it, playing a couple of CR90s with some demo or gladiators, and I mean, that was fun to play. I had a Vic that flew in there with some CR90s too. So I think that narrative play is something I hope that AMG, if they're listening, I hope they've
definitely done that with Marvel Crisis Protocol.
With Marvel, exactly. Yeah. So I hope they do more like that in an official aspect. I know community members have done it before on the side where they've organized it. They've done a lot of work kind of building out the event, building out scenarios, things like that. But yeah, I mean, if we can see more narrative events, I think that narrative is going to be kind of it'll be next to tournament. So you'll have all these tournament players that want to go play at the tournament, but then you can have a narrative event. Because I run into a lot of people that play Armada, love Armada. They play it at home, and I mentioned going to a tournament to them, and they just kind of back away and go, "Nah, I'm not a tournament competitive player. I don't want to do that." Right. If there was a narrative event that happened also, and even like I know Marvel did that, where they kind of gave out the participation prizes to everyone. There was no real winner. You just showed up and played.
Right.
If they did that with narrative events, I think that'd be great.
Well, there's also a lot of people that go to these cons that aren't going for the tournament. I think a lot of you guys go for the tournaments. Like I go to do different stuff. I'm in probably a very small minority. I'm going to film and do videos and interviews and stuff like that. But I want to play a little bit too. Like last Gen Con, I think I played one game. Actually, I know I played one game. It was after the tournament, and everybody was exhausted, and but I'm of the mindset, like, what if you wanted to go to the FFG booth, or maybe eventually the AMG booth, right? You want to get to the FFG booth on launch day before they sell out of whatever it is. That's and a lot of times you can't do that. Now, they were pretty cool last time and made sure that Armada players, and they did the same thing for Legion and stuff like that. They got their stuff, but sometimes you want to just go walk the convention hall and have fun on that first day, because that's where a lot of the new stuff is going to be on sale and sell out. And maybe you don't want to sign up for a 2 or 3 day tournament, and so yeah, I think you got a point there.
So I have a couple of thoughts to the tournament versus narrative. I play in tournaments. I'm more than happy to have a bunch of narrative play. I think that's a really cool avenue that FFG just frankly hasn't had the resources to explore. I think AMG would be doing themselves a disservice to drop competitive play for it. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm more than happy to add it in to the people out there who are like, oh, I'm not a tournament, I'm not competitive. Just come out. I'm talking to you specifically. I know some people are watching this.
No, they won't. I mean, I'm telling you, from someone who ran a game store, it's not going to happen. Like, I will tell players who come in and buy all the Armada stuff, and I'm like, we play Wednesday night. It's a tournament. I'm not going to show up. Getting them in there.
A tournament is a competition. Yeah. A tournament is a Saturday afternoon. A Saturday tournament is, when you show up, you're getting 3 games of Armada.
Yeah.
That's all a tournament is.
Right.
And if you want to play to win, sure, go for it. If you want to bring a wacky fleet with an interdictor and 2 gladiators because you just got the interdictor,
I feel attacked.
I may or may not be talking about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
You do a lot of projection experts on that fleet.
Ships, to go all the way back to stolen ships.
It's true. Yeah.
For narrative play, when you're playing at home, custom scenarios, whatever, go for it. 100%. Go for it. For tournament purposes, I'm one of those weirdos. I crunched some numbers several years ago. I can share them they have been shared with the world, but I can share them again if people can't find them. A number of ships would probably be balanced out of the box crossing over. Ironically, it's actually the largest that are probably balanced crossing over. I did a bunch of regression analysis. If you try to cost an ISD with the formula, to be clear, there is not a costing formula. But if you cost it on the trend lines of the Rebels, an ISD2 should be like 100 points. So paying that 20-point expense, I'll probably let you have it. Mm-hmm. The smalls, on the other hand, get really wild really fast. The Arquitens jumps into the 60 and 70 range, and you all know his red fishy face about why.
Better than a neb is what you're saying, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I was saying that it wouldn't be able to take advantage of the tech. So, like, what my thought was that you would take this ship, if it was a pirate ship, and you would it would be like almost its own fleet. Like, you could still activate it, but it wouldn't get the benefits of any of your fleet-wide stuff, too. Somebody brought up in the channel, or in the comments, an option about that. What about if it was somebody like Hera, or they mentioned Hera, I think maybe a commander like Saw Gerrera or Cham Syndulla as a commander who had the ability to bring a single ship over. And then you're paying the 30 points or whatever for that commander just to get one ship over. Now, obviously there'd have to be playtesting. There'd have to be playtesting because you might have to say, okay, it comes over, but it loses all upgrades other than an officer or something like that, Who knows? But I think that's a fun idea to explore because it gives the Rebels the ability to steal a ship, is something that they're known for.
I would love to see a narrative campaign that did that.
I'd love to see a commander at Atomic Mass Games. I would love to see Commander Cham Syndulla that can steal ships.
I definitely feel that it would be interesting to at least get into playtesting to try, because unless you try it, you don't know.
Right.
I personally am not opposed to the idea as long as they're not able to bring like the Rebel, like the opposite. Like if you get a Gladiator, you're not getting demolished.
Right. No titles for sure.
If you steal an ISD, you did not steal Chimera.
Exactly. Stuff like something like that. I definitely am intrigued by.
But you can have Avenger if you would like, because you can.
But yeah, it's one of those things that, again, when they're designing these fleets, these developers, they're designing around a theme, and that theme for that faction.
Yeah.
And so as another player, when you show up at a table, you don't want to have too much remembering about, oh, they have this, but except now they have this because they took that, and now it has this, but now it can do all these other things.
Right.
When you break the theme, you also break that player's ability to then understand how the game then made
the immersion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cameron says, "Oh, you could steal the SSD." I'm like, that's a good point. And so maybe you do like they did with Radis.
Without JJ or Pete, you're welcome to it.
No, well, I would easily say you steal a ship with command value 3 or lower for that point cost, right? Like that's an easy way to control that. And that would also eliminate like potential Starhawk stealing, except for the fact that that's already in the Rebel faction. But like there's definitely ways to control that. I think the biggest reason to do that is so you can get those things that are very iconic, like the Quasar, that you really only see the Rebels use in Star Wars. Of course, now at least with Star Wars Squadrons, we've seen the Empire use them, but
well, that's why I say the narrative events are perfect fodder for that, because if you're going to run a pirate fleet or run a narrative event that has that, and it's just small or medium base ships, and that includes flotillas, take what you want, then sure, go for it. Run your custom painted Quasar that's a Rebel Quasar in your Rebel fleet.
It's pushing B-Wings.
Come on. It's pushing it short, whatever. That's fine.
Come on, Rebel Onager.
Isn't broken at all. That's fine.
Rebel Onager is an interesting one. Yeah, I think if you wouldn't be able to take the upgrades, because I don't know if an Onager would be as threatening if it only had the built-in ignition attack, the short range ignition.
Close range.
It'll still beat people up.
It would beat people up, but it wouldn't. I don't know if it would be. I don't know. And again, it goes back to we'd have to play test it, but I don't know if that would be game breaking.
You have the Liberty. Why would you want an Onager? Come on, you have the Lib already.
I don't like to run the Liberty.
I'm going to quote you from like yesterday. The Onager is a better Liberty.
Yeah, no, that's the exact point.
I'm pretty sure that was yesterday.
You can quote me on that all you want. The Onager is a way better Liberty.
Yeah, it's a beautiful ship. I actually feel, and I've talked to a couple of you guys about this, I feel kind of guilty running it because I've had really good success with it. And so, but then again,
you're shameless, Jeremy. You're shameless.
My 2 Onager list doesn't bring me any guilt whatsoever. I sleep perfectly fine at night. Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I played a new player before all this chaos happened. I played a new player building up to my Worlds build that didn't happen. And he was like, Onager, what does that do? I'm like, don't worry about it. We'll see. I'll show you.
You
it's
are
fine.
A terrible person. Kids, do not be like this.
That double Onager list is, but I honestly just think it should be nerfed. I really do. I think that they need to do something where, there needs to be some tweaks to it. But, and that's from loving it and wanting to play a double Onager list. And I still think it needs to be a little bit. It needs to be 1.75 on the Onager upgrades.
I don't disagree that the Onager needs to be tweaked.
Yeah. Right. Ignition itself, if it can be like a salvo or you can't add dice to it or you can't modify them or something, there's got to be something because I can modify that.
Creative enough. You need to run new Ozzel. You just speed right up to the Onager. You go too fast. Well, actually, here's a cool idea. What if your speed was high enough that you got to cancel yet an extra die or something like that? Like if you were like faster targets being harder to hit, like if your current speed was beyond a certain number, then maybe you were even untargetable. Oh, that might be too much.
I would want to test that, and then if the data comes back and says slow targets for whatever reason are just kind of shrugging off the Onager because they're so big and tough. Mm-hmm. But it's the fast, squirrely stuff that explodes when sneezed at that needs help.
Yeah.
Then sure, I'd be willing to look into that.
Yeah.
That's going to be the other problem.
Cool idea on like running the evade tokens in conjunction with the speed dials. If you can cancel a number of dice equal to your speed, that's
half of your speed rounded up.
Or I'm sorry, half of your speed rounded up. Okay, sure.
I'm
but
trying to
again,
avoid Foresight running up to the front of a Star Destroyer.
Oh yeah, that's true.
One die.
Right. Yep. Yeah. But things like that. There's always opportunity to play test those things and 1.75. And I think they did a pretty good job in 1.5 with all the most of the cards.
I know we're getting close to wrapping up too, but some people have asked a little bit about like what do we think that Atomic Mass Games is going to do with Armada? And there's been a lot of questions about AMG. We really don't know.
That's the official answer right there, Matt. Oh, this side. There we go.
Yeah.
That's the official answer.
God, you'd think we'd have this down. There we go. There we go.
There it is. Like, I don't know.
Too long. We have
Who
too
knows?
many degrees between the two of us.
I mean, well, and I think the problem.
I just point this way.
Is this way? That way. I think the problem with AMG and their OP is that it started, and OMG, I'm gonna throw enough acronyms out there, but they released what, Marvel middle of 2019, was it?
It was the end. It came out, I believe, in December.
Right. And then they had this whole plan for an OP where everyone just shows up, we play some stuff. Adepticon had some Vibranium events, things like that, and nothing happened because it all got canceled. And so now we're all unfortunately having to look back at an OP system that was never tested and never tried, and wondering what it's going to do with Star Wars. So I don't know. That's the official answer. Who nobody knows yet.
I can tell you a little bit because I do also cover Marvel Crisis Protocol, even though I don't make as many videos. I usually just restrict it to unboxings, but I do still follow AMG, and I have always, or at least as long as they've existed. They are paying attention to people who are playing games and organized play, because even though we can't meet up, people are still playing on TTS and all kinds of stuff like that. There are certain combos of cards and lists that have been really, really strong. They've already come out with some nerf lists, and there's a ban list and things like that. So they do have their mind in the game as far as organized play is concerned. Even in a year where there is no organized play, they're still taking steps to address those balance issues where need be for Marvel Crisis Protocol. So I think that's a healthy step towards hey, you know what, they're still considering all of these things. You might also say, well, it stinks that they've had to ban cards already, and when the game is brand new. Well, yeah, but this is their first game. New studio, first game. X-Wing has had way worse problems.
Yeah.
Look at all the problem cards for Armada. Look at all of them. Look at everything that's been nerfed. Mm-hmm. With the flotilla exception, all of the problem children are wave 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which were tested before the game dropped. Mm-hmm. All of them. If you tell me
he's saying the Onager isn't a problem child.
Couple of expansions don't have any problems,
I don't think it is.
You're either lying or the game wasn't adventurous enough.
Yeah.
And I think the question's more of like a bracketed tournament system or a participation prize narrative system, I think is what the big question is, because, I mean, they don't really have a bracketed Marvel Crisis Protocol OP system. So,
and not to say that they didn't have that in the works. It's just there's been no reason to unveil it since there hasn't been an opportunity to yet.
Well, but if you go back to Gen Con's the flight report, 2 years ago, or whenever the AMG got up there and he talked about it, he specifically said, I don't want it to be a tournament system with he didn't use the bracketed term, but whatever term he used. And he said, I want it to be where everyone can show up, you can play some games, everyone gets the same prize. There's no he specifically went out of his way to say that. And so I think that's really something that people can look back on, but they don't know if that only applies to Marvel or if it's going to apply to a system that we've already got in place, regionals, primes.
I feel like it applies to that game specifically because that game works really well in a casual friendly format. It's super fun, but I don't think you could, in theory, I don't think there's any way you could take 3 games that have thrived on a bracketed tournament structure and say, we're not going to do that anymore. You would lose half the player base, or at least 40%. Well,
the flip side, and this is something where I think, I said earlier, I don't think AMG should drop competitiveness, but I think AMG's attitude would lead me to suspect that if they keep it, we're not going to see what Armada was going toward, and then it conveniently died before, which is an invite system for worlds. I still don't understand why FFG did that. I still think that was a bad idea.
Right.
I still think that killed the atmosphere and the culture that Worlds would have had if that had gone forward. And I much preferred it where it was yes, this is the World Championship, but the requirement to get in is you're able to show up and play the game. And we're going to let the tournament handle it from there. I know there are people out there that the super hardcore competitive types. I know a couple of them. I see you, Mark. I see you. I understand your point of view. There are games that are good that's good for. Armada's not one of them.
Well, another thing with these games too is I've always when I was first getting into it, I wanted to do more tournaments, and I couldn't travel as much at the time, and it was so hard to like want to be able to do these things, but you know, because how long it takes to play a game, you're not going to get a tournament in a day. Not a large tournament in one day, and so it becomes a lot more difficult to really participate in them. Compared that to like video game tournaments that happen over the internet, and you don't even have to leave your house, you know. And so, or like play a game of Magic: The Gathering with somebody, you know, you're over in like 5 minutes, you know. So you know, when the game takes a long time to play, you have to. You know, you have to make a lot more plans to be able to drive out or fly out to Worlds and get hotel arrangements and then lug all your miniatures. You know, it's a lot of logistics there.
Well, I think that's why they did it with conventions. You know, they kind of moved toward that system instead of, you know, flying to Roseville or whatever it is in Minnesota and you know, having to take a flight, going out there just for that, being out there just for that game. You know, maybe you play some other stuff. I know they started coupling them with different things, like X-Wing had its own, and then it was, you know, Destiny, you know, it's a game nobody mentions, obviously. Destiny was played with another game and all that, right? But, I mean, I think coupling it with conventions was good, because if you're going to go, to your point, you go to a convention, you spend Friday playing Armada, you don't get into the top cut, and you can still go to a convention. You can still do that. So I think that was great.
Saturday getting a really nice wood laser cut tournament box or something.
There you go.
Participate in the narrative side events for everybody that didn't make day 2.
Yeah. Which is what happened. That's exactly.
And I think that was on the docket for LVO. At least I know Legion had something like that lined up, and I don't know if
LVO we had what we called the Chance Cube Skirmish, and it was going to have a bounty system, and there was going to be a little bit of narrative, but mainly it was just like build this dumb stuff and come play it, and it was just meant to be just fun. And of
that's
course,
what people want, though. They want to play the dumb stuff and
exactly.
come to their event. Yeah, exactly.
I love the idea.
Like medium ships and some squadrons, but not too many squadrons. It was just meant to just be 200 points of just blast each other away. It's not. Right. It would just be on a 3x3 and just like, and there was incentive for players to like go and attack each other with a bounty system. We actually had a gambling system in place where you could make bets on things and you would get rewards from that.
I'm calling the cops. You can't do that.
We're in Vegas, baby. It's legal.
I mean, but if that was actually put together by AMG, like that would have been pretty neat. That at least they put that together and can blast it out to not just LVO, because you know, like I used to play Star Trek Attack Wing way back when, years ago, and they had, I know, I just dated myself. See that? You were saying you were old. And I mean, we used to play events that when you show up at once a month, there wasn't a tournament where you bring a 400-point list and you just play, you just beat each other up. It was a Dominion War scenario or a Borg scenario or a whatever scenario. And so that actually brought in a lot of people who weren't interested in just a straight up tournament, but were more interested in more of a narrative event. And if AMG could do something like that along with a tournament system, of course, that's probably asking too much. Or they create a bad guy. They say this is the Black Sun, and the Black Sun is doing this, and they've got a story arc, and you can play Rebel, you can play Empire, you can play whatever, and you could show up and play. So, but you know, that's on the wish list.
Wormhole opens up. There's Deep Space Nine, and you see 3 Galaxy class ships, 2 Miranda class ships, a Sovereign, and the Defiant, and you've got to take out the station. You and I
need to talk after this.
I got my Deep Space.
Jeremy,
I'm not ready. I'm shooting videos for it now, so don't, you know, my Star Trek mod for Armada. So
I want that so bad to become like a real thing, and I wonder if AMG will now maybe they can pursue other licenses, because why is there not a? I know there's Attack Wing, but the Attack Wing, in my opinion, doesn't really exist, because why is there not an Armada?
Well, it's also that Star Trek should be based on the Armada system, not the the flight pass system that they had. So I've got 3D printed stuff that I've showed you pictures of it, and
I've seen some of your photos.
I've got my own set too, if people want.
It looks pretty awesome. But I mean, I think that's something, not the Star Trek side of it. The wormhole might be a little much, but creating like a long-term narrative event where you could show up and play. I think, put out officially, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah,
Right.
especially if they release the print at home and you can play this, with your local gaming group also. And oh, by the way, report your results, and then we'll calculate, like at the end of the month, we'll be like, we had 1,432 games played across the country, and it turns out the Klingons are winning. Whatever.
That's what they did in Dominion War.
Yeah.
That's how they did it for 6 months.
Remember that little game mode, Take the Station? And whenever I play it, it's so much fun, but nobody ever plays it, right? Mm-hmm. So like little scenarios like that, exactly what you're saying is you design something like that, and you send out like once every 3 months, once every 6 months, be like, play it, record it, send it in, and then we'll post like the results from that. I think that's something that can be easily accomplished with the limited amount of resources that those studios.
I think that balances between having a straight up tournament only versus narrative. I think something like that, I think, is what the community would like, because I think I know, Matt, you're straight up a tournament player. I get it, but I have talked to those people that buy stuff and they have it all, and they don't want to go to a tournament.
Whatever they do, don't
say I'm a tournament player, but like,
I know.
To be honest, I'm a tournament player because like I do have a competitive part of my brain, but it's also like I said, when I play Armada, like even when I go to some of the locals and play at people's houses, like, no, I'm clearing my afternoon. We're not doing one game.
Right.
We're doing 2 games. We're doing 3 games if we're playing fast. Like,
if you come to my house, we're doing one game, and I'm kicking you out because then I got to eat dinner.
It's a group of people coming together to enjoy the game together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say I'm a tournament player, like, yes, when I'm playing, I care about who's winning and who's losing, but that's not why I care about the event. I care about the event because what is a game without an opponent? It's solitaire.
Right.
I'm sorry, solitaire is mathematically interesting and tactically boring.
I just switched over to the chat, and Mike said Star Trek Armada would be amazing. No squadrons, just ships. Oh, we just wait.
Well, there are squadrons.
There's more than one Star Trek
there's
mod.
very few.
There are. What is that? KDY. What's your website? KDY Yard? No.
Oh,
what is
I
it?
don't own it, but Katie Yards.
KDYards.com.
Yeah. I'm an admin on it, and I host my stuff there.
By the way, I've also, in case you guys, anybody didn't know, I did make a Deep Space Nine expansion using the WizKids DS9 for Armada. It's a scenario, and it does have the wormhole. The idea is you're trying to fly all your ships through the wormhole. The wormhole happens to be right behind Deep Space Nine, so you have to get through Deep Space Nine's fire arcs, and you get points.
The video will be in the description, right? That's how it works. It'll be down.
Normally it would, but I'm going to bed after this. So
I know. I was trying to find where the description was. I'm like, nope, can't find it.
It actually depends. If you're on mobile, the description's over here. But if you're on desktop or something like that, it's going to be over there. Yeah.
Oh, there's no tag up in the corner.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think that's a pretty good. I think we covered a lot of stuff. We answered some questions. We had a lot of feedback, a lot of interaction. So that was great. And anything we missed, definitely you can hop in. You can leave in the chat if you're watching later on. You can hop in my Discord. You can hop in the Armada Discord. I think everybody here is in all of them. If you don't know where the Armada Discord is, I've got a link to that in my Discord. So I'm luring you into mine first, and then go into that one. But whatever. There's check the links in the description below. You're gonna find links to all of that stuff. And I think that's gonna do it, guys. I want to thank you guys all so much for hanging out and spending your evenings today. This was enlightening. There were some things I was still a little unclear on, and so it tells me I need to go back and read that RRG one more time. I did not know about the pass tokens.
Discard the pass tokens. Yeah, discard them. That's right.
How can you discard something that's not even a card? How can you?
Carefully.
Dis-token.
Don't patter the words.
Right.
Everyone does still have questions. I know there's a lot there we didn't get to. If you have game rule questions, again, come to the Star Wars Armada Discord or ask them on the Crabbok Death Star channel. They'll, I'm on. You'll get an answer. People knowledgeable will be able to help you out.
Yeah, usually, if you don't want to use Discord, you can ask in the comments section.
People around, All
right. Well, we're gonna end it with that. I want to thank you guys all so much for watching. Thank you guys all for hanging out with us today, and as always, have a great day.